like Iron Maiden.
Hey folks, welcome to Grab a Stack of Rock and 50 Years of Iron Maiden. We are here in episode 19 with my co-host Harrison Kopp, the Mad Metal Man. How are you doing today, Harrison?
I'm doing good. I just fixed the Dutch tilt that I had on my camera, so I should be coming through nice and square. And it is a good day here.
Be there or be square every week for 50 Years of Iron Maiden. And this week, we have something special for you. We are going to be talking about Iron Maiden's very first compilation album, 1996's Best of the Beast. Now, this is a special album for a number of reasons that we will get into. We will also be taking a good look at the single Virus, because anytime you put out a greatest hits album in the 90s, you had to have a new song. That was just the way it went. So let's talk real quick about the release. Best of the Beast, released on the 23rd of September, 1996, because the Christmas season was just around the corner. Now, there are three main releases for Best of the Beast. We will be talking about two of them. There is the 27-track 2-disc double CD. We have a Holy Grail item, a 34-track 4-disc vinyl that we'll talk about. And
it's the longest running Iron Maiden release of them all.
There you go. That makes sense. There's some regret that we'll talk about when it comes to that 4-disc vinyl, but there's also a 16-track single disc that we'll say is for newbies, and we're basically going to be ignoring that release for this show because we want to go a little bit more in depth than the single disc release. And really, if you are an Iron Maiden fan, you do owe it to yourself to get this. Don't say, oh, I have all the tracks, or, I don't want Virus or whatever, because Harrison and I will make the argument that there's some worthwhile stuff on here for you to acquire.
Chances are you don't have all the tracks, as we will get into.
Right. I don't have all the tracks. Now, interestingly enough, there are uncredited live versions, unreleased live versions of Afraid to Shoot Strangers and Revelations. If you take a look at the back here, everything that is live is labeled as live. But if they had made one slight change here and just put the words previously unreleased, my life probably would have gone in a very different direction when I found this on vinyl in around 96, 97 for about $300. And I looked at it and I hemmed and I hawed and I was like, looks great. It's got a lot more songs and everything, but there's nothing on there I don't have. I already had that Soundhouse Tapes bit that we'll talk about on a bootleg. So I'm like, it's a lot of money to ask. But the vinyl of this has, in addition to what you get on the double CD, you get a whole bunch more studio tracks. You get the complete Soundhouse Tapes, including the unreleased Strange World, and you got a bonus live version of Revelations. But on the back cover, it just said Revelations Live. So what assumption do you make? I made the assumption that it was the Live After Death version, just like Running Free and Rime of the Ancient Mariner, because it didn't say...
Well, yeah, the only reason you could have known that it wasn't the Live After Death version is because, as we will get into, right, so the 2 CD and the 34-track 6LP, they both go in reverse chronological order. The 1 CD was just mixed track list. So the thing is, Revelations doesn't sit with the rest of the Live After Death tracks. Right. It sits a bit later on in the disc. So that would be the only reason that you would be able to infer that it was different to the Live After Death tracks, because Running Free from Live After Death doesn't sit with the first album. It sits with Live After Death and Ancient Mariner Live. The funny thing is, though, Revelation is still out of order because it's in the middle of the Number of the Beast tracks. It's too far down. It should have been slightly more up with the Peace of Mind tracks.
Okay, fair, but I thought Running Free was there because it was a single at that time. And the other thing is, you're sitting in a crowded record fair and there's people all around you and you're staring at this thing and it's like you've got limited funds and limited time and you don't have time to process all of these questions. And there was no...
Yeah, I'm not saying you should have known. I'm just saying that,
you're just
for the
saying
nerds
that...
among us, there is one teeny tiny little telltale.
Right. So that is one of my remaining Iron Maiden Holy Grails would be a 4-disc vinyl Best of the Beast to get Revelations and the complete reissued Soundhouse tapes. There's another way to get a complete reissued Soundhouse tapes, but it involves getting the Virus single on vinyl, which is very expensive as well. Both of these on vinyl are very expensive, prohibitively expensive thus far for acquiring in my collection. This album went to number 58 in Australia, number 16 in the UK. It went gold, but I couldn't find numbers for Canada or the United States. So if that meant it didn't chart, I don't know. I can tell you this. Obviously, I knew it was coming out. I wanted to get it because I knew that this 2-disc was a limited edition, and the newbies would get the 1-disc edition. Now, we weren't carrying this at our store. It was an import. This is a UK printing. So I called the HMV store on the telephone and I said, do you guys carry the new Iron Maiden 2 CD Best of the Beast limited edition? And the guy says, yeah, we got 5 or 6 copies here. And I said, oh, can you hold one for me? And he laughs and he goes, I won't need to hold one for you. They're not going to sell out. And sure enough, the state of the world at the time, the state of Iron Maiden, I went there and they had like 4 or 5 copies left. So unfortunate for Iron Maiden, fortunate for me, but that was just the state of the world of Iron Maiden at the time.
My story with this album starts a bit later, 2012. So story time. Wait, no, not that story time. So story time. So this is my father's copy of Best of the Beast. It was given to him by one of my uncles. He would presumably digitize his entire CD collection and pass it on to us. So now I'm going to show you something. That's a CD-R in there. And the reason why that is because it only had the 1 disc. It only had the first disc in here. Now, if you're paying attention when I said this goes reverse chronological, that would mean that this disc of Iron Maiden that I got runs from Virus through to Wasted Years. Which means my introduction to Iron Maiden, the Iron Maiden that I fell in love with, the songs that I knew as Iron Maiden were, as we'll get into, the 90s Iron Maiden, which is not the classic era. I didn't know what Aces High or 2 Minutes to Midnight or Number of the Beast sounded like. I looked at this, this Rime at the Ancient Mariner that was this mystical 13 minutes long, and here I am looking in this awesome book, by the way, with the lyrics, and we get to Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and it's spread across 2 bloody pages, and I'm just like, whoa, what's this song? What happened is when I very first started getting my own CD collection, the first thing I bought was my own copy of Best of the Beast 2 CD with both CDs so that I could have my own personal copy. And that's where I burned the CDR for this copy from. And the funniest thing is I once saw on eBay a listing for just CD2 of Best of the Beast. So I could have bought a replacement CD2 for this. But so yeah, that's my experience with Iron Maiden. And that's part of the reason why I am the way I am, why I love Blaze, why I'm not so stuck up about Blaze not being Iron Maiden, because to me, Blaze is Iron Maiden. Man on the Edge was the song that got me hooked on Iron Maiden. So now you know why I am the way I am.
And now the mystery is no longer.
Also tells you why I like No Prayer for the Dying so much as well.
True, because that's covered on disc 1. So let's quick overview here. I want to talk about the reverse chronological thing. So I know we want to talk about this album in detail, but basically what we have here is a reverse chronological rundown of basically Maiden's entire career from the Soundhouse Tapes to a brand new single called Virus, which we'll talk about in more detail when we go track by track. But first of all, I want to talk about the reverse chronological. Now, that's an integral part of your story, as we now know. I planned on asking you how effective you thought it would be, but now we know for Harrison, he has a very different background. But how effective do you think the reverse chronological works on this album?
Well, I like reverse chronological because to me it's logical. It makes sense. You get sort of an overview of the history, and I didn't come to classic Iron Maiden and go, oh God, this sucks. Why isn't he singing like No Prayer? I loved classic Iron Maiden as well. I love everything on here. So yeah, I generally like reverse chronological because I like how it flows and it's nice and logical. I can't really speak to the effectiveness with any accuracy because, as we know, I am a very unique individual, and I dare say that my experiences are not universal.
Okay. I by contrast think that the reverse chronological doesn't really work for me. I'm used to compilations going chronologically. I mean, most of us are, right? And the ones that get it right, a chronological compilation can be, as I've said on the show before, as the kids say, chef's kiss. The reverse chronological doesn't work for me, although, as Harrison said, it is logical, and I understand why. You know, they wanted to do a really good anthology style compilation, and they wanted to highlight their current era with the new singer and the new single. It makes perfect sense on paper. But to me, the listening experience,
As we sort of said earlier, it is worth noting that the one disc edition wasn't reverse chronological; it was just mixed. I haven't listened to that one disc edition, so I don't know how well that listening experience is.
I have listened to it, but not in about 25 years because I listen to it at work at The Beat Goes On. Anyway, that's what I feel about the reverse chronological. I find it's kind of strange. It's like watching evolution in reverse. It's like watching a movie backwards. For me, it does not work. But having said that, it is logical and it does make sense on paper. I think that's all I wanted to say about this album. Do you want to start going through it track by track? And we'll use this as our template, and then I'll interject anytime there's a vinyl bonus track.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with Virus, the brand new single. Now, we'll take a closer look at this single when we're done talking about the album because there's some interesting B-sides and releases. But this was a brand new track, and after listening to it a number of times this week, I feel that what we have here is a track that is sort of a hybrid between the X Factor and Virtual 11. There's this opening section where it's very dark, very slow, very, you don't want to say ballady because it's not the right word, but it's very X Factory in some of those. Moody. Yes, it is very much an extension of the X Factor. But then at the halfway point, we get into this faster section. And I think it's very Virtual 11. So I think that this song is actually a hybrid between the two eras that it actually chronologically bridges, but also sonically bridges.
Which makes it a fantastic sort of like look in time. Like you can imagine like what's the album if they did an album in between these two, what does it sound like sort of thing.
Yeah, it's one of those alternate reality kind of things if you want to look at it that way. But I like Virus, but I do find the opening slow part to be very long, too long. It's like it really takes a while to get to that really fast part. And the weird thing is, there's a single edit on here that is, almost half the length of the original edit, and it cuts off all the slow stuff. All of it completely. It goes right into that guitar part that I was miming earlier. And then it has the slow outro, even though you never got the long, slow intro. So it's kind of a weird edit version. It works good in terms of like punch and getting a new Iron Maiden song. I guess the attempt to get an Iron Maiden song on the radio, I don't think it did particularly well, but it's an interesting choice to just chop it in half for that edit version. I like Virus, but it's not. If it was on the X Factor, it would be close to the bottom of my choices for the X Factor. What are your thoughts on Virus?
I like Virus. In fact, I think I would go as far to say as I love it. It's very unique sounding, as you pointed out. It fits neither on the X Factor nor Virtual 11, sort of being this sort of like unique sort of entity, even though it does have sort of parts that call back and call forward to the sounds of those albums. The intro can be a little tedious, but I find that it feels a lot longer than it actually is. Like when I was a kid, I felt like this dragged on for ages, but as I've gotten older, it's a case of, we're getting going already sort of thing. And once it gets going, it's an awesome song. I love it. This is during the end part where it sort of changes up tempo again for the mid-tempo part. It's got this very interesting choral keyboards, as in like a choir voice, which you don't hear in Iron Maiden very much at all. You get the occasional regular keyboards, but not like the voice keyboards. Maiden did nothing with this song since the release. It was literally on here as single, and that was it. But Blaze Bayley has really essentially just given it a new life. It has appeared throughout in the set list throughout his entire career. It's on almost every single one of his solo live albums, and it sounds great there as well. I think he may even shorten the intro bit slightly by a verse or two. I don't think there's many of as much of the bits when he does it live, but yeah, no, I like this song very much.
I'm going to be the pedantic ass this time and say that there was one more release of Virus, which was the Visions of the Beast DVD, which we will be giving
yes.
we'll actually be dedicating an entire episode to that Visions of the Beast DVD.
Yes, that for anyone who didn't know was the music video anthology of everything up to Rock in Rio.
And speaking of which, that was the first time we may as well talk about the music video for a moment here. That was actually the first time that I saw the video for Virus, was that Visions of the Beast DVD, and I was really disappointed. It looks so low budget. It's Iron Maiden in a room literally like the size of Harrison's bedroom with like lights moving around. It's terrible. It's really
there's a lot of green light flashing as well. Epilepsy warning for anyone who does something.
Yes. Absolutely true. Thank you, Harrison. But really, I'm not even really exaggerating that much when I say it's in a room, just a room.
Yeah. If randomly you've seen Ailstorm's Frozen Piss Part 2 music video more recently, it's literally like that. It's a room and it's green.
It's a room and it's green.
Oh, there's lots of zoom in on their faces as well. But if you suffer from motion sickness, don't watch this video either.
Like, there's absolutely no way you'd see this video and not know that it was from the mid-90s. It is so mid-90s that it's like all it needs is like some plaid and some Doc Marten boots. But moving on, though, after we get past the new single Virus, we get to Sign of the Cross. 11 minutes and 17 seconds of Sign of the Cross. Thumbs up from me. I love hearing that next.
Yeah, I respect the putting the longest song on here as well, rather than just the other single in Lord of the Flies. I love Sign of the Cross. I love hearing Sign of the Cross.
Speaking of Lord of the Flies, it's conspicuous by its absence on the vinyl version as well. So that's sort of one of those singles that is missing, which we'll talk a little bit more about.
Yes, I don't think the vinyl version added in any more Blaze Bayley tracks. It was just the 3.5 that we're going to talk about here.
Man on the Edge is next. So another single, the fast one. Thumbs up.
Yep. As I mentioned, this was the song that hooked me on Iron Maiden. We got to that very first chorus and it was like, damn, this shit is good.
So that was his gateway. Afraid to Shoot Strangers live in Gothenburg, Sweden, 1995, previously unreleased. Now, this is something that you can't necessarily appreciate, but here I am popping in this CD after bringing it home from the HMV store and listening to it in sequence, and all of a sudden there's this live version of Afraid to Shoot Strangers. I was expecting either the real live one or the live at Donington version, and all of a sudden we get an unadvertised, previously unreleased Blaze Bayley lead vocal and the very first ever officially released live version with Blaze Bayley. So I'm like sitting there.
One of only 2 times that Blaze appeared on a Bruce track officially.
But here we are, a previously unreleased Blaze track, and I'm like, why isn't this advertised? Why aren't we knowing what we're buying with a hype sticker or something? Like, this album was not marketed well to fans, is what I'm saying. We do have this big sticker advertising the forthcoming Melt video game, but that video game never came out.
That never came to be.
And I'm glad I have that for historical purposes, even though it covers up one of my eddies. But I think it's a miss to include this great version of Afraid to Shoot Strangers and not advertise it as, hey, it's the first thing that you're going to hear from Blaze singing live. I know you love this track, so I'll just let you take it away.
Yeah, this is awesome. Every great thing that Blaze Bayley brought to the X Factor with his dark voice, his powerful vocals, all this character dripping, he brings it all here too in spades. The verses are not just Bruce just lulling through something. It actually grips you. In addition, the production here is not as thin as those Live One, Dead One, Donington ones from earlier in the 90s. This song sounds powerful. This is definitely my favorite version of the song. It's got my favorite version of the guitar solos too. They sound great, really well-formed notes, not just sort of like sloppy mush of notes. This is the ultimate Afraid to Shoot Strangers experience, and the song has finally lived up to the potential that it had.
Take that. Be Quick or Be Dead is next. Moving back to the Bruce Dickinson era. And I don't know. There's something about this running order that just doesn't work for me. but I would not have excluded Be Quick or Be Dead. Definitely, I would have included it. So happy here.
Yes, this is one of the few songs that I actually like off Fear of the Dark, so I'm happy with its inclusion.
And then, as Harrison said, we have a track here that is live from a real live one, Fear of the Dark Live, which was a single, and slightly out of order. It's after Be Quick or Be Dead instead of before, if we were going in reverse chronological.
Yes.
But
and if you want an extra tidbit for the real nerds among us, the Bruce's intro, the Fear of the Dark, that was normally that's on the back of whatever track on a real live one came before Fear of the Dark, and then Fear of the Dark starts with but here they've actually moved it to the front of the song.
Yeah, now that's just, of course, digital tracking information on the CD, but what Harrison's saying is that if you did have a real live one, the intro, Fear of the Dark, would have been a separate track from the actual song, but now they've thoughtfully combined it together.
I haven't done like an A/B or put it in Audacity. I don't know if there's anything else they've done to the audio of Fear of the Dark to differ it from a real live one, but it sounds
to my knowledge, no. Then we have the first track from No Prayer. We have Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, which was a huge single. I don't care for the song particularly, but I guess it has to be included because of that massive charting that it did. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I love Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. So yeah, partly it was one of the first Iron Maiden songs I heard, so it is eternally etched in my mind as the Iron Maiden that I fell in love with. And even though I would go on to love almost all the songs on No Prayer for the Dying, I think the two that they've picked are some of the best.
Now, they did, as you said, they picked two. They tried to pick at least two from each studio album. Holy Smoke.
You'll notice that a lot of the songs here are the singles included.
Yeah. Oh, with a couple weird exceptions. Holy Smoke is one that I would have deep sixed, but you're going to have two singles. There are two singles. It's either that or Tail Gunner. I guess I would have subbed in Tail Gunner.
Tail Gunner. God.
But as I'm looking at the running order for the vinyl, I don't see Tail Gunner on that either. So it didn't make either the vinyl or the CD. Then we have the Clairvoyant, this one, moving down to Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. So we've got Iron Maiden sounding very rough and raw, and then they all of a sudden get more keyboardy and technical. The vinyl track list for this, by the way, is completely different, and you get Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, the title track, 9 minutes 54 seconds in this.
The only time Seventh Son of a Seventh Son has appeared on a greatest hits album of Iron Maiden.
Understandably why, but a very fascinating choice, and I think I would love to make like an MP3 copy of this vinyl running order just for listening value. But basically, you get the trio.
An anthology release like this is the only place you could include Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, but also Seventh Son of a Seventh Son being on this album means that side C of the 6 LP is entirely Seventh Son of a Seventh Son tracks. It is basically the second most represented album. It is the most represented album on that release, along with Number of the Beast, which also contributes 4 tracks. However, its side also has Revelations Live, so it's not an entire Number of the Beast side.
Harrison is right. This is side C of the vinyl, and it is indeed all Seventh Son content. But essentially, on the 2 CD version, you get the 3 singles, sort of. The Clairvoyant, Can I Play with Madness, and The Evil That Men Do. 2 notes. The Clairvoyant is the studio version, not the live single version that was actually released. And Can I Play with Madness does not have the question mark. And they're not in chronological order either, because Can I Play with Madness would have preceded The Evil That Men Do. But I have no quarrel with any of these 3 inclusions.
Especially at this point in their career where they didn't have as many albums as they do now, you pretty much had to have all 3 of those songs from that album on here. And I do not complain about any of them.
And then we close off on both vinyl and CD. We only get 2 tracks from Somewhere in Time, which are Heaven Can Wait and Wasted Years. I would have rather had Stranger in a Strange Land and Wasted Years, but that's one of these weird anomalies here where they subbed in a song that they'd been kind of playing classic live for years instead of the other single.
Yeah, it's true. Stranger in a Strange Land disappeared off the set list after Somewhere in Time. Heaven Can Wait and Wasted Years were literally the only songs they played off Somewhere in Time. Did I say Heaven Can Wait and Somewhere in Time? Anyway, Heaven Can Wait and Wasted Years were the only songs they played off Somewhere in Time, other than the Ed Hunter appearance, 5 dates of Stranger in a Strange Land, until we got the Future Past tour. So it pretty much made, these were really the only songs we were going to get off this album.
Right. And I wonder, though, if Adrian was still in the band, if Stranger in a Strange Land would have been featured on it. Who knows? We can speculate, but the fact that they only played it 5 times on the Ed Hunter tour when he reunited with the band might be evidence that the answer is no. Regardless, we are moving on to the CDR of Harrison's collection, CD2. Now, this one here starts off with the, as Harrison said, the epic 1310 version of Rime of the Ancient Mariner from the Live After Death album. Now, you and I and Uncle Meat went through the Live After Death album in great detail and praised this live version very much. So I suppose that's the reason to include it instead of the slightly more sterile feeling studio version, is it's got that incredible live energy.
And I mean, of course, the moral of the story is this is what not to do if a bird shits on you is worth major points too. Opening track too. The only time Mariner's ever opened anything.
Yeah. That's kind of funny. So Live After Death is represented by 2 tracks, Rime of the Ancient Mariner and the single Running Free, which is obviously the short version and not the long edit. Extended, yes. The single edit. So that's appropriate here. The vinyl, incidentally, does things differently. It closes side D with Running Free and opens side E with Rime of the Ancient Mariner. So you get those 2 tracks out of order.
For running order reasons. Yeah.
For running order reasons. Then we have 2 more singles, 2 Minutes to Midnight and Aces High. Again, on the vinyl, these are all mixed up. 2 Minutes to Midnight is on side D and Aces High is on side E. But those are exactly what I would have done with Power Slave. Now, if I was the vinyl sequencing guy, I would have found a way to include Power Slave on the vinyl.
Yeah, I was just looking at my list of vinyls and I was like, hang on, Power Slave's not on here.
No, like there are... The bonus tracks on the vinyl tend to coalesce towards the end, as we will see. There's some cool stuff happening towards the end. But
it is nice that they paid their respect to Paul Di'Anno, as we'll get into later. I mean, I said paid respect. He wasn't dead at the time, but he had been out of the band a while.
Acknowledged his era.
Yes, they had given him his due. Is probably a more appropriate way of phrasing it.
They really did try to make this as comprehensive as possible with the time constraints at hand. Now we're moving on to the Peace of Mind era, and we get a magnificent inclusion in Where Eagles Dare, but it's at the expense of Icarus, which is not on the CD or the vinyl. Personally speaking, if I did have to do a toss-up and choose between the 2, I'm fine with Where Eagles Dare, but it just seems that Icarus would have been... C'est la vie. You can't include them all. That's it.
Yeah, Icarus was that sore point between Steve and Bruce about the tempo there. It's funny as you're looking at this, you're like, oh, if I drop Eagles down and put Icarus, I can fit Power Slave on. You know, the people at EMI who were putting this together must have had a bit of both a really fun time putting this together and probably pulling their hair out, being like, oh, I just need an extra minute on this side and I can get this in. And
oh, not to mention the fact that, they had to do this again for the single CD version and do it for the vinyl. And vinyl being, it's basically 3 times as hard with all the different side length limitations. That's why they're in such different order in many cases here. But yeah, Where Eagles Dare and the Trooper, for sure the Trooper got to be on there. Then we get to Revelations Live. Let's talk about that at this point. Revelations Live. So this is live in Dortmund. And I believe you said this is from the Peace of Mind tour. It's 6 minutes and 11 seconds long.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's basically, if you were going to look at live versions of Revelations, obviously the Live After Death version is the one to have. There's something magic going on at Long Beach Arena. But this version from Dortmund would be my number 2 choice. And I wish I had that vinyl. I wish I'd paid $300 for it in 1996 dollars than whatever you're going to see it for on Discogs right now, usually 4 figures. Sigh.
This is one of only 2 Dortmund 1983 tracks available in audio form, the other being The Number of the Beast live from the Aces High single, although you can get 7 of the 9 or 10 tracks they played that night. Yeah, 7 of the 10 tracks they played that night on the Early Days DVD, including both The Number of the Beast and Revelation. This is a really solid version. Bruce sounds really good, especially considering it's the final date of the tour as well. Yeah, it's a great version.
Ooh, nice fact. Final date of the tour. And again, I will restate for the history books that if it had said previously unreleased on that vinyl, I would have parted with $300 that day, and my heart would be whole. Today, I may be $300 richer than I was then, but my heart is not complete. Okay, so we have from The Number of the Beast itself, Run to the Hills, and Hallowed Be Thy Name, although the vinyl includes The Prisoner. I think these are the 3 tracks I would have included. You can't uninclude those 2 big singles just because we've heard them a million times. We're trying to do a complete anthology here, and it would be negligent to not include those 2 big singles. And including Hallowed.
Not include Hallowed.
I was just going to say, if you're going to include a 3rd track, Hallowed is the one, and damn, The Prisoner would be number 4. So really, they nailed it on both CD and vinyl.
I mean, when you get to basically like the next track from them, the basis, you get The Prisoner or you get Children of the Damned based on how you're feeling on the day.
Man, I wish they included Children of the Damned.
Well, Children of the Damned actually made it onto Somewhere Back in Time, almost 20 years later, 22 years later rather, whereas The Prisoner didn't. So it all balances out in the end.
And hopefully we'll be getting to that album close to the end of the year. All righty then.
Do we even need to cover it? There's nothing new on that one. We'll toss
Harrison,
it into Flight 666.
This is 50 years of Iron Maiden. If we don't hold it up in front of the screen and talk about it for a little bit, they'll have tomatoes throwing. They'll be throwing tomatoes at the screen.
Here's Somewhere Back in Time. Now here's Flight 666.
They'll be like, guys, you forgot Somewhere Back in Time. And we'll be like, I know. Anyway, moving on now to the Paul Di'Anno era. We have Wrathchild, Phantom of the Opera, and Sanctuary. Although on vinyl, we get Wrathchild, Killers, Remember Tomorrow, Phantom of the Opera, and Sanctuary. So a much beefier selection of Paul stuff. When I got to this section of the CD, Harrison, I felt that I was being shortchanged on Paul Di'Anno stuff. I felt like I wanted just a little bit more representation from those first 2 albums. Now, we do get more songs, but they're not from the first 2 albums.
Well, when I got my CDR, when I bought my own copy with both CDs in there and listened to that, and I got to the Paul Di'Anno section, the first Iron Maiden album I bought after that was Killers, because I fell in love with the Paul Di'Anno era as much as I fell in love with the other era. And I was like, well, Killers, I know it's got some great songs on it, but it's also got a lot of stuff on that I don't know, that I don't already have. And Killers blew me away. Like, yeah. I definitely made the right choice because I had Killers and Peace of Mind in my hands, and I picked Killers, and yeah, definitely the right choice. So I guess, yeah, from my experience, there was the perfect amount of Paul Di'Anno on here.
Okay, so what I like about this episode is that we're getting 2 contrasting experiences, but I think we're hearing still a lot of unanimous praise for the general track listing overall. So my thoughts here are Wrathchild. I mean, I love Wrathchild, and as soon as I hear those bass notes hit, I'm like, Paul era. To me, it feels like those bass notes are the Silver Surfer heralding in the era of Paul Di'Anno, just like the Silver Surfer would for Galactus. That's your Fantastic Four tie-in.
Or Joe Satriani.
Or George Satriani.
Oh, wait, he's not allowed to use that anymore.
I'm trying to tie into the Fantastic Four, which is probably out in theaters by the time this airs. Phantom of the Opera, I was a brave choice here because that's sort of a deeper cut as far as Di'Anno track. I mean, it's 7 minutes long.
I think Phantom of the Opera is more than pulling its own weight regarding its own inclusion. It is the first Iron Maiden epic. It is Phantom of the Opera. Like, I go crazy every time they play it live. It's literally like, if I'm looking at a live album, it's got Phantom of the Opera. That's like major points to, I got to buy this sort of thing.
Okay, cool. I consider it a bit of a deeper cut, but you're saying it's essential. Either way, it's on here. And then we get Sanctuary, which is absolutely fine. Great song, but there's so many
before I got
songs.
sick of the song.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's very frequent, but there are other Paul songs that we could have included as well. There's a lot of Paul songs that we don't get because they're on side H of the vinyl. So side H of the vinyl is the complete Soundhouse tapes. And we've already talked about the complete Soundhouse tapes in the very first episode that we ever did. But for the sake of convenience, I've decided to read you my notes from that episode. So there are 3 tracks on the Soundhouse tapes, and now we have the 4th unreleased track in Strange World, which is on the CD and the vinyl. So the CD has Strange World and Iron Maiden. The vinyl, you get all 4 songs on a dedicated side. So here they are. Prowler. Brilliant version with the high guitar part laying clean on top. Great scream from Paul, more straightforward than the album version, slower groove. Strange World sounds unfinished compared to the other songs, a prototype of the skeleton without the atmosphere. There's a slow bluesy solo, which is probably Paul Cairns on guitar. Iron Maiden, different, more straight ahead groove, not as driving or ahead of the beat. The low end is more present, the vocal is more laid back. In Invasion, which was later released as only a B-side, actually, it's less
Re-recorded for that B-side too.
Correct, yes. All of these songs were re-recorded for their albums and single releases. Less frantic and speedy than the B-side version. Vocals on the chorus are heavily layered and produced. That can't save the song for me, as we talked about before. It wasn't a favorite song of mine. But that's the Soundhouse tapes, and the very first time that the Soundhouse tapes were ever officially reissued, and the other time that they were officially reissued at around the same year, was if you bought Virus on vinyl. And then you got the missing 2 tracks that weren't on the CD. You could get them on the vinyl Virus.
Yeah, it's about 10 or 12 inch vinyl. I can't remember which one.
I think it's
I don't have that.
No. That's like I said earlier in the show, the Discogs asking price is simply too much. But we do have more to talk about. I guess let's talk about this album art before we'll move on to the Virus single. This is great. Look at all those eddies. And they're not just album eddies. There's single eddies on here too.
Yeah, that particularly this No Prayer for the Dying Hooks in You Eddie is really only from like the No Prayer for the Dying tour art that Derek Riggs did for 88. I was trying to look through the booklet to see who did this art. It's very much Derek Riggs Eddie's. I just don't have confirmation that it is him.
I've always assumed it was. I also want to look at the booklet. Harrison showed us the 2-seat. This is amazing.
Awesome booklet. I spent so many hours looking at this and reading this when I was young.
Look at that collection of Derek Riggs Eddies there. Look at that. Real live one in the center, surrounded by some of the other Eddies from this era on this disc. That's disc 2. Harrison's. Oh, and one of my favorite photos of Iron Maiden. No, we're not an English rock band. We're dental floss salesmen from Montana. And look at that, highlighting all 3 eras of the lead singers right there in the very first page of the booklet. Every page is gloriously coated in photographic,
including an extended version of the family tree that first appeared in, I think it was a Real Dead one, but it could have been a real live one. It still apparently has those errors in it that the original had. According to Wikipedia, the cover art was done by Derek Riggs.
Excellent. Okay, perfect. We have confirmation. But just look, this is just a smidge of what you get. Album art, single art, live photos, posed photos, lyrics.
Yeah, including like tour posters as well that you wouldn't normally see.
Indeed. There's the Mark Wilkinson Donington Eddie.
On No Prayer, you get the Tail Gunner art and the No Prayer for the Dying art in full without text. One of my favorite pieces of art is this here from Seventh Son of the Seventh Son. I believe it's a tour poster. You might have to zoom in on your screens. I don't know how you're going to be able to see it, but the fetus basically in the flesh bag that he's holding in the Seventh Son art is basically clawing its way out of that now, and you can see that it's green with sort of like tan colored claws. Now there is a certain Eddie from the reunion era that is green and has sort of claws like that. And I remember when that album, well, I don't remember, but I heard about when that album released, people were not too happy with the Eddie. They were, oh, that's not Eddie. That's not, yeah. So maybe it's Eddie's son. Food for thought.
Can you folks guess which Eddie he's talking about? We'll get to it in a future episode. I only have 2 complaints about this. Well, 3 complaints about this booklet. Okay.
Focus camera. I'm here.
He's there. He's not a specter. He's not a Phantom of the Opera. I have 3 complaints about this booklet. And I'm going to say they're minor complaints, but here we go. We have to be thorough on 50 Years of Iron Maiden. First of all, here's the final page of the booklet. There's a nice little credits and some final photographs, but there's no essay. And I would have liked at least just 1 page of notes from Steve or from Rod or from anyone, Mick Wall, anyone, just a little bit of an essay. Because this is a historic document, but there's no story like you would normally get. Second, even though the album is reverse chronological, the booklet is chronological. So you have to be an Iron Maiden scholar to be able to follow along. And thirdly, although it looks cool, it is. Isn't that bizarre? And even though it looks so damn cool, I hate CD sleeves, especially when I'm paying a premium price for a premium product. I want that premium product to keep my CDs in mint condition. So essentially, I played this album on CD once, recorded it to 2 90-minute cassette tapes, and played those from that point forward. Today, I have it ripped to my PC, and I play that exclusively, and I do not take the CDs out of those sleeves. That's the life that we live as collectors and people who care about the condition of the music. Like, this is bought in 1996, and look, there's hardly any shelfware. Hardly any. So that just shows you how much I care. Do we want to jump ahead to the Virus single and take a deep dive on that real quick?
I think yes. There are some really cool things to talk about.
Shall we proceed?
Yes. I have this cover art version of it, which I bought for the B-sides. Those B-sides being Sanctuary, Metal for Mothers, and Wrathchild, Metal for Mothers. Both of these are, I believe it's their only CD release for these awesome versions of these songs. Once again, we covered these songs back in our very first episode. But just to reiterate, this is my favorite version of Sanctuary, and this Wrathchild is dripping with deep purple. This is the full version of Virus, by the way.
Now, it doesn't say who does the art here, but I'm assuming it's Hugh Syme again.
Yes, it's very Hugh Syme looking. I get very much X Factor Eddie from that face in there.
So what we're going to see when we look at this single is there's a bunch of different interpretations of the word virus. And in this one, we have sort of like the virus under the microscope, and you can see it's Eddie. Very disturbing art. I always thought so. I can't remember where I bought this, but like you, I bought this for the B-sides. And we did cover Metal from Others in the aforementioned very first episode of 50 Years of Iron Maiden. But for the sake of completion, I'm going to run you through my notes. Metal for Mothers, Sanctuary, and Wrathchild with Tony Parsons on guitar. Sanctuary is very close to the final version. Guitar solo is very different, similar to the BBC Archives version. That's Tony Parsons on lead. A little simpler, but very fast and catchy. Wrathchild, we have a slower, more heavy groove, and the vocal is double-tracked throughout. Nice, impactful version, if a little less powerful than the one we're used to. There was a second single, and it came in this cool slipcase that holds both. Don't you just love that? There's the sticker.
It won't hold the vinyl version.
It will not hold the vinyl version, but if you got both, we have this other cover art of Eddie. I don't know who did this. And
or how that's interpreting Virus.
I think the binary on his, well, it's not binary because you see there's a 6 there too. There's a 6 hidden away. I think that indicates a computer virus, but what we see here is definitely a different motif than a virus.
But the vinyl art, which is what's behind us, that's very much the computer virus interpretation. Maybe this version of Virus is talking about like the monster in society that the lyrics talk about.
Now you may say, well, where did Harrison get that artwork from? if we don't have the vinyl single here to show
Mike
you,
sent me
and
a
I now
postcard.
we'll show you. Foreshadowing, folks, in a future episode of 50 Years of Iron Maiden, Jake, not from State Farm, will ask us, what was Iron Maiden's obsession with releasing postcards? And it wasn't just Iron Maiden. Postcards were a very popular inclusion in a lot of UK CD singles. I have examples from Def Leppard. But here are the 5 postcards included with the virus single. So we have that Jungle Eddie with what I'm assuming is digital computer virus. We have the Hugh Syme microscope slide Eddie. Very cool and very disturbing. Then we have this one, which is like a biohazard. Eddie in like a biohazard box.
Also
Again,
looks
looks
to be
very-
Hugh Syme's X Factor Eddie.
I would speculate that this must be Hugh Syme too, because if you look at the noses and the eyes, the beady eyes and the nose, they're very similar. Next up, there it is. This is my favorite, and I think this is Derek Riggs. It looks very Derek Riggs, although it doesn't have his signature. But
it looks actually very similar to the Dead One, a real Dead One art where he's ripping his own head open. The basically the back.
Oh yes,
art.
yes, the mask. What I call the mask artwork, where there's hands on either side and on the bottom. Yeah, very very good observation, Harrison. Now, so that's a computer chip, which is a very cool interpretation of the virus title. Personal favorite is this one. And then finally, we have the shot of the band promoting Best of the Beast with the Eddies behind them. And that's where we got the artwork for this week's episode. As mentioned earlier, Harrison said that the full-length version is on this single. So you get the full 6-minute plus version of Virus on this single. And then this single has that surprising 3-minute and some second edit.
And the B-sides on this one, if I recall correctly, are My Generation and Doctor Doctor.
Correct. So one reason why I did not buy that single initially was because those tracks, we already covered them on the X Factor, the last episode that we did, because they were included on the Lord of the Flies single, which, strangely enough, isn't one of the singles on any version of Best of the Beast. Wow, this was a confusing, convoluted episode, isn't it?
Yeah, if I was being a bit of wishful thinking, I reckon they could have included a few more songs from that Gothenburg gig on that other version of Virus. They were, they could have given us Edge of Darkness or something cooler than just reusing covers.
Absolutely, they could have, but this is one of those things we'll never see now, because, well, we'll get to the next chapter on 50 Years of Iron Maiden. Anything else you want to say before we peace out?
No, just to say that I'd probably have to give this like an infinity out of 5, because the Iron Maiden, that mega fan that I am today, started with this and would not have happened without this.
So without this, we would not have 50 Years of Iron Maiden, because that is the brainchild of Harrison. I would give it a 4 out of 5 or an 8 out of 10. In order to remain consistent, I'll go 8 out of 10. I have minor quibbles with it. I don't enjoy the listening experience going reverse chronologic as much as Harrison does, but I value it for its effort to be complete. We won't see another compilation like this until the 2000s, when we do one called The Essential Iron Maiden, where there's a 2 CD set that we need to discuss. So I admire this.
Ed Hunter, but it doesn't run reverse chronological. That's a very different running.
And that's not a full 2 CD set, as we'll talk about as well. That's like 1.5. So 8 out of 10 for me. It was nice to see Iron Maiden putting out a compilation in 1996 and staying on the shelves. But unfortunately, as I said earlier, it didn't really have much of an impact on the sales charts. And on to the next chapter, which will be Virtual 11, with our friend Jake, not from State Farm, joining us once more to close out the Blaze Bayley era. So this has been Mike, and that's been Harrison, and this has been 50 Years of Iron Maiden. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. If you could share it with your friends, we'd really appreciate it too. Every little bit helps. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.